Hello, everyone. We are back again. Kris Boyd this time, number 217 overall. He was drafted in the 7th round. He's 5'11", 201 pounds, and ran a 4.45 40-yard dash time. So he is a corner. This one's a corner out of Texas. Feet only average foot speed, and it kind of causes some issues when he's trying to close distance between him and receivers. And it kind of there's this quick separation there sometimes because of pretty average just foot speed in general when it comes to his actual technique and how he does things. Anyone who has some form of deceptive route running, whether that's a head fake, a double move, anything of that sort, kind of get him twisted and turned around quite often. And the ability to plant and drive is relatively average as well. So man coverage is at his best when he's able to win early in the route with physicality, when he's able to kind of redirect people. He does get a little too handsy down the field and does more chasing than covering at times. The receivers that have more twitch can easily beat him, I think. Anyone who kind of has an idea of good route running or just really athletic, kind of twitchy, those guys can kind of have a field day with him at times. Tackling, I think, is his best attribute personally, and he really just comes up and attacks ball carriers. He also has pretty good hit power for a corner, I would say. He's not like a safety necessarily, but as far as corners go, it's a nice little jolt. He's very competitive, and he wraps up, and he's even able to break stiff arms at times. Like he doesn't go down without a fight. And he can come in too hot sometimes and not really balance himself before he tries to actually tackle the guy, which can lead to an occasional whiff. So sometimes he'll come up short just because he comes in a little too aggressive. I don't think he has the ideal length, but he does appear comfortable in zone. And he has pretty decent route awareness, and he kind of trusts his technique in that regard. And despite allowing separation, Boyd is rarely lost when it does come to tracking the ball in the air. And he really does play against the run and all those quick game kind of routes like the slants and those out routes and some of those hitches and screens. He plays against those things really well. He's a very physical corner. Plays a very physical brand of football, and he's really aggressive in that whole contact window. And he'll just come up and try to lay the lumber. He'll try to hit you. He'll try to make sure you remember that he hit you. He's kind of one of those guys, and he does pursue with quite a bit of urgency. And I do think he knows how to play the ball in the air. Like, I do think he knows how to find it, at least in terms of his ball skills, and play through the receiver's hands in order to, pretty much try to hit it out if they already have the ball in their hands. And separate their hands from the ball before, it becomes an actual catch. Though he does struggle to elevate sometimes. And he can get outworked for the ball occasionally, I would say. Like, sometimes he's not really, because of that lack of elevation, and does allow separation a lot. So that kind of takes away some of these opportunities to make a play when it comes to these ball skill kind of things. And that's a little disappointing. You would like to see him get a little better with that. His press technique, that way, like all the press stuff, I think his jams can be a tad soft at times. And that could possibly be due to the fact of just the lack of length, and he has some mirroring limitations. And that could kind of affect that a little bit. And he does well to kind of just crowd them at the line of scrimmage, and he can kind of get to the middle of a receiver sometimes, though, and that's good. And he has a decent pop in his hand when he is able to actually land the hit, but sometimes he comes in a little too soft with it, and you don't really get that from him. I think he has a pretty tight waist which does lead to some pretty rough transitions sometimes and just a slow change in direction at other times. And that will also allow separation. And sometimes he does have a delay in just the driving of his plant foot, which I did mention before is average to me. So I do think he has some limitations regardless of his technique, but I wouldn't really trust him in off man coverage because like I think he's at his best when he's either in press man or playing zone because I think he is comfortable in zone despite some limitations, but I don't think he's necessarily a major liability in him. And in press man coverage, he's able to win when he's able to redirect the route a little bit, just reroute the receivers, and that's when you see him start to win in man coverage. So bump and run kind of guy to me who comes up and hits people. And I kind of viewed him as a 6th-round draft pick coming into this. So we got him in the 7th. We got some value there. But I could see him making the day one roster just because Holton Hill is a very similar type of player to this and, well, to Kris Boyd here. And even though I don't think Boyd makes the opening day roster if no one's suspended or who even knows if Trey Waynes gets traded, obviously he probably makes the roster at that point too. But Holton Hill suspended for the first month of the year, so I could see him making the opening day roster. And there is some upside in this pick just because of how Minnesota likes to play it. It is a lot of press man coverage. It's just the hips I have a little bit of an issue with. So I give this like a C+ grade. I don't think it's a special kind of player. I don't think it's necessarily what we got in Holton Hill last year, where he had kind of off-field troubles, and he was probably like a 3rd, 4th-round draft pick. Just those off-field troubles forced him to go undrafted. I don't think that he's necessarily that kind of player. I don't think we're looking at that same kind of thing here. I do think this is more of a 5th, 6th-round kind of guy that fell a little bit in the draft, and now we got him here in the 7th, and he's a good scheme fit. So I'm going to give it a C+ just because he got some value. It's a good scheme fit. Things work out. And, yeah, let me know what you guys think about Boyd in the comments down below. And until next time, I've been Jelladoo.